You've just given me a tour of your beautiful optometry practice,
Yes.
as well as the diagnostic room that you share with the ophthalmologist.
Yes.
And I'm looking at equipment that I've never seen before. How did that come about?
Obi, first I must say I can't take the credit for all of this equipment by myself.
Okay.
It is the ownership basically of the ophthalmologist here at Pasteur. And here's about 6-7 optometrists on the same premises.
Ophthalmologist.
Ophthalmologists,
Okay.
yes, sorry. And and we all share the equipment. So I've got an arrangement with them that I can also share in the equipment. And I am very privileged because I know the average optometrist, for instance, cannot afford all these equipment by themselves. So it helps me also to diagnose and help my patients better.
But even before this, Dina,
Yes.
when I remember you years back when you were a lecturer and
Yes.
still having your own practice
Yes.
with a previous group, you were still like hardcore
Yes.
when it came to the clinical expertise that
Yes.
optometrists need to have in order to deliver like that excellent quality service to patients. Have you always been like that, or have you always sort of like made a decision a long time ago that you're not going to have a practice that is just doing average work, and that your clinical competence is going to get to a level that sets you apart from everyone else? Have you always had that approach?
You know what, I always had a dream. Always have a dream to be in the position like I am now at the moment. But it didn't come easy, and it wasn't always like that. And I think to stress also to optometrists out there, you actually don't need all this expensive equipment in order to be a good optometrist.
Okay.
Because remember, when I started off fitting RGP lenses,
Okay.
especially back in the days at the varsity, we started with the bare minimum, all right? And and I feel also that's maybe also where my clinical skills got so improved, by not having to do all of these things by yourself, to really interpret your fluorescing patterns when you do RGP fitting and all of that. But nowadays, with the modern equipment, it makes your life so much easier. So I can, when I look at the topography scan, I can immediately, okay, this is a nipple cone, this is a oval cone, or this is a globus or a pellucid, and from there I already can make my decision on which design to choose, whereas previously, you have to take your lens by lens,
So you're not dependent on the equipment, because you did not start with the equipment.
Yes.
But you have made sure that the equipment works for you over time, and that you are able to maximize the equipment to the best of its ability, basically, in your clinical practice.
Yes, definitely. And if I take the our OCTs in the other room, especially how it also improved my skills with scleral fitting. So yes, you can fit sclerals without OCT measurements, but now that I'm also more into the technology and using that, I don't want to fit without the OCT.
Okay.
If you understand what I'm saying.
When we got into this room, you said this was your favorite room. Why?
Okay.
What equipment do we have here for that 22-year-old who will probably be looking at this video and be like, I've never seen that before?
Yes.
Or that 35-year-old optometrist who realizes that basic optometry is not going to cut it anymore, and they're looking at this video, looking at this amazing equipment here. I see it's the Oculus here.
Yes.
Do you mind telling us a bit more in terms of why you use this piece of equipment? Why is it your favorite, and how does it help you in clinical practice?
Okay. All right. Because I have a passion for the irregular cornea and contact lenses. I get referred a lot of keratoconus patients and irregular corneas, post-LASIK ectasias, all of those things.
Okay.
It is about 80+% of the work that I do.
Sure.
So obviously, as an optometrist, I started off in 2017 in this room with the Oculus keratograph.
Okay.
The Oculus keratograph is a great machine for optometrists. But it also has got its limitations. So it measures your corneal curvature with your tear layer.
Okay.
So it doesn't give you anything about the thickness of the cornea, maybe the back surface doesn't give you additional information, and even if the patient's got a very dry eye, then you struggle to get a measurement. But it's a lovely instrument also. I know it's got features for dry eyes and things that you can also do on that. But recently we upgraded to the Pentacam, all right, and the Pentacam now measures, give you front surface, back surface,
Okay.
corneal thickness, and it's got lovely features incorporated where you can accurately diagnose your keratoconus and which stage they are. What I must say is before the Pentacam was here, we had an old scan, which was basically the same thing that the ophthalmologists used, but they just upgraded to the Pentacam. The Oculus was purely like as a backup, and specifically because the software was also written for contact lens fitting. So that's why I used that one in favor of the old scan. But the orb scan had also now different features like the thickness that it had. But now with the Pentacam, I'm so in love with the Pentacam. It just opens up so much more value in terms of data that you can get.
Wow. It obviously costed a lot of money, and like you initially said that there's a holistic approach to eye care here at the hospital here. But for when you were in your own private practice before you came here, what equipment did you have then when you were starting out buying equipment? Which equipment did you start off with? And what decisions did you make financially where you said, you know what, this is going to come at a sacrifice, but the long-term benefits of it will outweigh the short-term pain that I'm going to feel in my pocket.
Exactly.
How did you make that decision that, you know what, I'm going to invest in the equipment for the benefit of my professional career going forward?
Yes, I think you must think, first of all, what is your interest? In what region of optometry you want to go into? So it doesn't make really sense to have a topographer if you're not really into contact lenses or doing irregular eyes. So that was my decision, because I have such a lot of keratoconus patients and irregular eyes that I see. So I started off, obviously when I just had my practice, I had just a basic keratometer, and I learned how to convert or extend the range of the keratometer, but that's limited data, so it only gives you central values, so it relies that you still have to have a lot of clinical skills as well. So nowadays, and then after that, I then budgeted to buy the Oculus keratograph, and I think that's still an excellent tool for the optometric practice, because it gives you a lot of data which is user friendly that you can use in your practice. You can always refer out if you need optometry data or things like that. And I think another valuable tool for optometrists is an OCT to have. And what is a good value also is that you can basically screen every patient on your OCT, and you don't necessarily have to charge them. But if you do pick up problems, obviously then you can charge them for
I must
OCT
say,
or refer them out.
I've stopped practicing completely, but a few years ago I had the privilege of still being in practice about 3 days a week. And the practice that I was working in, they purchased an OCT machine in the last year that I was there. And I realized that the first time I started working on it, I was like freaked out, thinking that this is not for me. But the more patients I got to see, the more competent and confident I became.
Exactly.
And so would you say that you, over the years, enhancing your clinical skills has enabled you to be set apart from the majority of practices? And why I say that, when I was in varsity, I think in Bloemfontein there was like 5 optometry practices. Now I think there's like
there's a lot, and they still popping
and they're
up.
popping up. There's like over 100 optometry practices in Bloemfontein. So would you say that you focusing purely on the clinical skills being at another level altogether has enabled you to distinguish yourself from all these other practices, that you're not relying on what everyone else is doing? Does that play a big role
Oh,
for you?
absolutely. You know, I always had the dream of the way I would like to practice and to be a good clinical optometrist. And definitely,
Wow.
yeah.
And how's the relationship with the ophthalmologist? I'm sure they trust you a lot.
Yes.
Has that always been the case when you got here, or did you have to prove your competency and prove how efficient you were
Yes.
for them to trust you in referring their patients to you?
Absolutely. Yeah, the ophthalmologists here, obviously they have an obligation to their patients to see, when they refer them out for fitting or things, they need to know that the patient's going to be in good hands and that they're going to receive the standard of care that they would like them to have. So yeah, it also didn't come overnight. Definitely, I had to work very hard, and I had to prove myself.
Wow.
For that.
You're truly inspirational, Dina. You know, I look at, you've been consistent over the years with regards your contact lenses and the
Yes.
type of contact lenses that you're doing now versus what, 15 years ago.
Yes.
You're on a whole nother level. So when is your book coming?
Watch this space.
Watch the space. Because we South Africa has got one of the things that you notice when these international leaders come to South Africa for conferences, they are amazed at how brilliant our local practitioners are, such as yourself. And it's high time that the rest of the country and the rest of the continent become aware of the brilliant leaders like yourself who are doing incredible things. You can't just keep this brilliance cooked up here, Dina. You need to take it out there. And we need more of your content on broader platforms, because you make a difference. You have no idea how much of a difference you make, you know. So for me, it's actually a privilege that I have this opportunity to talk to you. One thing I have to ask you before I go, last thing. You work with your hubby.
Yes.
He's also an optometrist.
Yes.
How do you separate? How do you switch off? Because I work with my lovely wife as well, and I'm struggling with that, to switch off, you know. How do you guys strike that balance between working together as business partners, but also then having an amazing family that you are having? How do you separate the two?
I think, Obi, one thing is that we are a bit more mature at the moment.
Okay.
You understand, we've got a bit of life experience, and especially we've got two lovely boys, and I think our priorities is also now the family. So we have now, we've got a rule: we don't talk work after hours. When we're at home, we dedicate it to the family. We spend quality time, and we've sort of like come to agreement with what is our priorities and who is more responsible for what area or aspect. And I say, if you were to ask the younger Dina, I would say I will never be able to work with my husband. That's why I say that the years of experience and especially family and marriage and all of that has changed that.
Wow, Dina, I wish you all the best over the next few years. That young people need to be coming through your doors on a more regular basis, because what you bring to the industry, what you offer the industry, it's something unique and special. And I learned a lot, even though you are one of two people that resulted in me failing. But I'm so grateful for what you taught me, because it also helped me not only in clinical practice to be competent, but in everything else that I do, to have that attention to detail, to be specific with the things that I want to pursue and be intentional about it. And I got that from you, because I used to look at how you were approaching your career, and I was like, you know what, I need to have that type of focus. So thank you very much for that, Dina.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Obi. You know what? I think at the time when I was a lecturer, I was the only lecturer that was still in practice and lecturing. And most, and all with the busy lifestyle, is what I try to carry over to the students is like what I found difficult in practice, and how I want you guys also not to have the same problems that or learning curve that I experienced. And that was basically my whole aim, to lecture from experience in practice.
I like that. So with that being said, then are you saying that students, when they're still studying, need to spend more time then in practices as much as they possibly can, like during holidays, on weekends, as much as they possibly can, to get that real life experience
Exactly.
that they get earlier on. And I think it has to be broadened, not only dependent on the clinical work, but they need to be learning about business. They need to be learning about
Yes.
the challenges that are going to come with buying equipment, the challenges that are going to come with leading people and all of that. So I think what you just said right now is very, very important.
Yes, definitely.
Wow, Dina.
But thank you, Obi. And
It's only a
thank
pleasure.
you
Thank you.
for coming to visit me. I
No,
appreciate it so much.
this was just impromptu. I realized that, you know what, surprise optoms and have a conversation, because when they're not prepared that you're coming, but they open your doors to have these type of conversations, you end up sharing your truth and your journey. And I know a lot of people will benefit from this. So thank you.
Thank you, Obi.